Looking at the college football Power Four conference championships, the biggest spread is the Big 12 with BYU getting 12 and a half. They lost to Texas Tech earlier in the season, 29-7. Do we look for more of the same in this game?
I don't know. I tend to play a lot of dogs, and I think the Kalani Sitake situation is going to be a real positive. It's going to be a boost for the BYU players. They're thrilled that their coach is staying and not going to Penn State. But when you look at Texas Tech, you're talking about an 11-win team that's covered in every win it's had this season. Red Raiders have simply taken care of business every game. That's not a team I want to bet against. I lean BYU plus a 13 here. I think the dog will put up more of a fight than it did the first time around, but that's not a bet for me right now. It might be on the weekend, but not today.
Well, speaking of dogs, let's talk about Georgia, rematch with an Alabama team that beat them earlier in the season. Dogs have been playing better late, bit of a clunker offensively against Georgia Tech, but in the rematch here, who do you like?
I like Georgia, and I think Kirby Smart wants this game. He is 1-7 against Alabama. We know that Bama went between the hedges on September 27th and won that game. I think the Georgia defense playing a lot better now than it was then. The numbers show it. Georgia D in the last 3 games, 7.3 points per game. I know this clown show that's a college football playoff committee is really impressed by Alabama's gutsy win at Auburn last week. Auburn's 1-7 in the SEC and fired its coach. Auburn outgained Alabama 411 to 280 in that game last week, and Jam Miller, who had 83 yards rushing, limped off with a leg injury. Not sure what his status is going to be here. I like Gunnar Stockton and an improved Georgia defense to get the win. I laid Georgia minus 2.5 and minus 135 here.
So looking at the 1 and 2 teams in the country, in the Big Ten, Ohio State and Indiana, the outcome really isn't going to matter there as far it just will be for seeding. They're both most likely going to get a first-round bye. But how do you see this game?
I've had this game circled for quite a while, and I knew I was going to be on Indiana this week. Curt Cignetti, what a story. What a turnaround he's pulled in Bloomington. I mean, this guy reminds me of Nick Saban. He was on Saban's first staff at Alabama in the mid-2000s, recruiting coordinator, offensive assistant. And he reminds me so much of Saban, the way he coaches and every attention to detail. If you talk about Ohio State, you always start with the number 1 scoring defense in college football. Well, that's 7.8 points per game. Indiana's number 2 at 10.9. And by the way, Indiana's offense is going to be the best that Ohio State has faced this season. When you look at the Ohio State schedule, how many really good offenses have the Buckeyes faced this season? Not many. I mean, you could say Texas was not fine-tuned anywhere near it in week 1. Washington, Illinois, maybe a little bit better than mediocre. This is going to be the best offense the Buckeyes have faced. Fernando Mendoza playing for the Heisman as well. Indiana has scored 27 points or more in 11 out of 12 games so far. And I like the Hoosiers here. Hoosiers underrated defensively, pretty good offensively. I think they're going to be pretty good against this Ohio State defense. And, hey, let's talk about this. This hasn't been talked about much this week. Do you think there's going to be a bit of an emotional letdown for the Buckeyes off the Michigan win? They had to get that gorilla off their back last week. That was a game they had circled for so long. They get the win at Michigan, which is sort of like their Super Bowl. Is the Big Ten championship actually a bit of a letdown spot for Ohio State? We know Indiana wants this one bad. Cignetti wants this one bad. The game's in Indianapolis. First bet I made this week was Indiana plus 6. I'd still play Indiana plus 4.5 in money line. I think the Hoosiers got a great shot to pull the upset.